Ladies and gentlemen, we are back! The Casa Nightmare crew took a hiatus last summer, and we're proud to announce the beginning of a whole new season of scary bedtime stories, as well as a few other projects that we have in the works for the channel. But we'll get into that another time, as for today we have a story about a little girl's revenge on her evil stepmother, and a story from Mexico about the dangers of vanity. There once lived a girl who shared a home with her stepmother. Years earlier, her mother had died and her father had remarried. While her father lived, her stepmother treated her kindly. But after the girl's father died, that woman turned poison mean. She made the girl do all the work around the house and on the farm. When the girl didn't work fast enough, and most days there was no fast enough, the woman beat the girl with a chain. The girl was miserable, but she had nowhere else to go. One morning, when the girl was around 14 years old, her stepmother said, "Today you're going to chop the weeds out of the cotton. Go on out there and don't come back to the house until you've finished either." She sent the girl out without any breakfast. The girl trudged out to the shed, picked up the hoe, and walked on down to the cotton patch where she began chopping weeds. The girl chopped and chopped. The sun beat down on her. Her stomach growled. Still, she chopped. But as she worked, she thought, "I ought to just run away. But where would I go?" The longer she worked, the more running away seemed like a reasonable idea. Finally, she gave in. She hid the hoe in tall weeds under an old wagon. Then she walked into some nearby woods. Even though the woods were so close that the girl could hear leaves rustle in the slightest breeze, she had never been there before. Her stepmother kept her working so hard, she'd never even had time to explore the woods right next to the fields. So, in no time, she was lost. But that didn't stop her. "I'd rather die out here than go back," she thought, and she kept on walking. At about mid-afternoon, she reached a clearing. In front of her stood an amazing house. The shutters were made of wafer cookies and gumdrops studded the walls. Oh, the girl was so hungry she couldn't stop herself. She ran up to a window, broke off a bit of shutter, and popped it into her mouth. The door of the house opened, and an old woman looked out. "Child," she said, "you must be awfully hungry if you're chewing up my house." The girl swallowed hastily. "I'm sorry, ma'am," she apologized. "I should never have done that. I'm so sorry." "It's all right, child," said the old woman. "You've done no harm that can't be undone. Like I said, you must be awfully hungry." The old woman offered her hand. "Come on inside, and let me feed you a proper meal." The girl went inside, and the old woman did indeed feed her a fine meal. The old woman also told the girl stories and jokes. The two of them talked and laughed together. The girl felt a joy she had not known since her mother died. Then the old woman glanced out the window. "Oh, child, it's going to be dark soon," she said. "You need to go on home now." "Oh," sighed the girl. "Do I have to go? Couldn't I stay with you?" "No, you need to go home." "But," the old woman interrupted her, "I know you're living a hard life, but you have to go home." "I was lost when I found your house," the girl protested. "I don't even know how to go home. Please, can't I stay?" The old woman stood. "I'll help you find your way, child." She walked to a cupboard, opened it, reached in, and pulled out a gingerbread boy. She handed the gingerbread boy to the girl, saying, "Put this in your pocket. Eat it after you reach home." The girl put the gingerbread boy in her pocket. She was about to speak again, but the old woman raised her hand, and the girl fell silent. "Your life will be better, child," the old woman assured her. "You'll see." The two of them left the old woman's house. In a very short time, the old woman had led the girl through the woods and within sight of the old wagon. They said their goodbyes. Then the girl retrieved her hoe from under the wagon and trudged on home. When she walked into the house, she smelled freshly baked bread. Her stepmother sat at the kitchen table, knife in hand, slicing the loaf. When she saw the girl, she set down her knife. "I don't know where you've been, but you were not chopping out the cotton like I told you." As she spoke, she leaned over and picked up the chain beside her chair. "Don't think you'll be eating any of this bread." When the girl saw the chain, she ran toward her room. Her stepmother came after her, whirling the chain. The girl ducked as she ran into her room. She slammed the door and braced herself against it. She could feel the door shudder as the chain struck it, again and again. Finally, the stepmother tired and returned to her chair at the table. The girl braced a chair under the doorknob to keep her stepmother out. Then she collapsed on her bed and cried. She cried for her father and mother. She cried in longing for the joy of that afternoon. She cried and cried. When she was cried out, she rolled over and felt the gingerbread boy in her pocket. She took it out, looked at it, held it by the head, and bit off an arm. Out in the other room, the stepmother sat eating warm bread slathered in butter. Suddenly, her knife flew out of her hand, and whack! It cut off her arm. She couldn't scream. She just stared at her arm on the floor. Back in the bedroom, the girl ate the other arm. Whack! The stepmother's other arm landed on the floor. The girl ate a leg. Whack! One leg gone. The girl ate the other leg. Whack! Another leg on the floor. Then the girl broke off the body from the head. Whack! The stepmother's head fell to the floor. After she finished eating the gingerbread boy, the girl fell asleep. The next morning, when the girl walked out of her room, she found her stepmother's body in pieces. No blood on the floor, just pieces. But the girl knew just what to do. She took a shovel from the shed and she dug a grave. She had worked so hard for so many years, she had no trouble digging a hole 6 feet deep. Of course, she had no need to make it 6 feet long. After all, the body was in pieces. In the times that followed, the girl lived on there in her own house. She and the old woman in the woods became fast friends and the very best of neighbors. Once in a small village in Mexico, there lived a very beautiful young woman named Maria. She had long dark hair, big brown eyes with long eyelashes, and beautiful red lips. There was a problem, though. She knew she was beautiful. She would look in the mirror and say, "Ay, soy tan hermosa." Oh, I am so beautiful. Then she would open her eyes wide and flutter her eyelashes and say, "Y mis ojos son tan hermosos." And my eyes are so beautiful. Then she would smile into the mirror and say, "Mi sonrisa es tan bonita con mis dientes blancos." My smile is so pretty with my white teeth. Her mother would watch with concern. "You shouldn't do that, Maria," she would say. "You should have more humility. Vas a ver." "Oh, Mama, why can't I say that? You know and I know that I am beautiful." Whenever Maria walked along the road and noticed a young man watching her, she would flutter her eyelashes at him, and he would almost faint. If she wanted to drive one of the young men crazy, she would swing her long, beautiful black braid while she looked at him. Sometimes, if the young man was sitting on a fence, he fell off. All the men sighed because they were very interested in her. Every Sunday, everyone in the village, young and old, would go to the tardeada afternoon dance. One by one, the young men came over to ask her to dance. She would look them up and down and then say, "No gracias, no ni modo." No thank you, no way. She'd mumble to herself, "Demasiado alto, demasiado corto, demasiado flaco, demasiado gordo." too tall, too short, too skinny, too fat. Her mother would say to her, "You should not act like that. Vas a ver. You will see." Maria did not say anything, but she thought to herself, "Why should I be humble? I am beautiful." One Sunday afternoon, a very handsome stranger walked in while the tardeada was underway. He was tall with a beautiful smile. His clothes were all black. He wore a hat and boots with silver trim. Maria took one look at him and said to all the girls, "He's mine." But the stranger didn't dance with her. He asked other young women to dance, but did not so much as look her way. Everyone noticed what was going on and whispered to each other. Maria went home quite stunned. "How could this happen?" she thought to herself. "I'm the most beautiful in all the village. I will make him ask me to dance. I will make myself a dress so beautiful that he will not be able to resist me." She worked all week on a beautiful yellow silk dress with a full skirt and off-the-shoulder sleeves. She did not sleep very much that next week because that handsome stranger walked through her dreams in his black and silver boots. That next Sunday, she wore her yellow silk dress. She wore her braid up in a crown with a yellow flower in it. She carried a fan of many colors in front of her as she walked into the tardeada. When she walked in, all the men, young and old, stared at her with their mouths hanging open. Everyone waited anxiously to see what was going to happen. Then the handsome man finally arrived. He walked in and stood at the door looking at everyone. Everyone looked at the handsome stranger, and then they looked at Maria. Then he began to dance with everyone around her again. Maria sat with her head lowered, gazing at the ground, trying not to look at him. She could not believe that he was not asking her to dance or even coming close to her. By this time, everyone was watching and whispering and giggling behind their hands. "Did you see? He didn't even ask Maria to dance," the other girls giggled. "He didn't ask Maria to dance." Again, Maria went home wondering about this handsome, mysterious man. She thought, "I will make myself a beautiful red dress that he will not be able to resist." That next week, Maria worked night and day on her new dress. She did not dream of the stranger very much because she could not sleep. But every waking moment, she kept wondering about him. That next Sunday, Maria dressed in her beautiful red dress. She took her hair down, and it flowed down her back in cascades. When she walked into the tardeada, everyone stopped to look at her. The men all sighed at the same time. Once again, the mysterious handsome man appeared. He did just as he had before, ignoring Maria. He danced with all the other young women, including her own sisters. "Why is he dancing with everyone else?" she asked herself. "I am the most beautiful girl in the village." But tonight was different. On the very last dance, he came over to her. He extended his hand and said, "Un baile, por favor." "A dance, please." Maria stood up, took his hand, and they began to dance. It was just as she had dreamed. They fit perfectly together. He spun her around, and she felt as though she were floating. Her eyes were closed, and she was enjoying the dance a great deal. Suddenly, she heard a scream. She looked around and saw people running and screaming through the dance hall. She looked up at the handsome man, but he wasn't so handsome anymore. Now, horns were coming out of his head, and his eyes were red. She was terrified. As she screamed, she leaned farther back and saw that he had a tail and that his feet had claws like a rooster's. Maria realized that she and this terrible stranger were floating off the ground. She pushed away from him with all her might and made him lose his balance. When she fell to the ground, she scrambled to her feet and ran as fast as she could. But she could hear him chasing her from behind and screaming, "Maria! Maria!" He was catching up with her, and she could almost feel his breath on her back as she screamed, "Maria! Maria! Maria!" She ran to the only place she could think of to go. She reached the church, dashed through the door, and locked it behind her. He banged on the door and screamed, "Maria, come out of there! Maria! Maria!" He banged and called out her name many times. Maria sat in the church, praying and crying. She was so scared. Finally, he left. In a while, she heard a knock at the door. "Open the door, Maria." It sounded like her mother, but she said, "How do I know it is you?" The voice said, "Maria, yo te dije. I told you." Maria knew it was her mother. She opened the door and fell into her mother's arms, sobbing with relief. After that day, Maria danced with everyone who asked her to dance. She was much more gentle and kind to everyone too. The strange visitor never returned, but Maria never forgot him.